Hello and welcome to Reconnect from Grief's very first live broadcast. I would like to thank you for joining me tonight, and I'd like to thank also our producer and our technical advisor, Elaine Lindsay from Trull Social. To get the most out of the webinar tonight, I'm going to ask that you switch off all other programs you may have running, put your cell phone away, and just settle in and relax, and we're going to go on a journey. But before we do, I'd like you just to close your eyes and take a nice, deep breath. Just allow all the worries and the cares of the day just to drop away. It helps when you're not creating a to-do list as you're listening, so that you can be truly present and hear the information that I will be sharing with you this evening. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome you to 3 common beliefs to avoid that will stop grieving women from healing. But before we go into this, I just would like to ask you of how many of you have read Alice in Wonderland, or if you've ever seen or the movie perhaps. And her quote is, "I can't go back to yesterday because I was a different person then." And I'm sure that if you recall your Alice when she falls down the rabbit hole and her world begins to change as she tumbles down, don't you think that could describe how you felt after your loss or the death of a loved one? That somehow you too had fallen down a rabbit hole? Perhaps you are struggling to make sense of your new world and it doesn't quite fit in yet. I really resonated with this quote when I was going on my grief journey. Isn't going back to yesterday what most of us would wish for? Just another opportunity, more time, or even another chance. Unfortunately, we cannot, because we are here in the present with our future waiting to be created. As with any significant event in your life, you are changed by it, almost like an initiation. There's the event, and you grow because you can gain valuable knowledge and wisdom that you didn't have prior to it. Just like Alice recognizes she too was changed after her adventure. And I like this quote because Alice can show us how we can begin the task of accepting just where we are, by knowing we cannot go back to yesterday. So I am truly, truly honored that you are coming to keep me company. And tell you what, why don't you come and sit in this chair beside me as we get comfortable and settle in, because we are going on a journey, as I mentioned. And for those of you who don't know me or have never met me, I'm Anne Debutte, a demystifier of grief, author of Grief's Abyss, and your guide, if you will allow me tonight. You may be wondering if you're in the right place. Well, if you have experienced any loss, such as a divorce or relationship breakup, the death of a loved one, and you are grieving or not grieving, but you may feel stuck, and that perhaps something is missing in your life, then yes, you are in the right place. Congratulations. And I would like you to take a moment just to thank you for showing up. Because you could not have attended, and truly you would have the perfect reason for not doing so. Because you are going through grief. But showing up takes commitment, and by doing so, you have proven to yourself that you are ready to take action. Yes, indeed, you're grieving, but I suspect wanting to feel better by finding another way and getting back to life. And that's important to you. Definitely taking action and showing commitment is one of the first things my clients demonstrate to me. Most of all, I need them to want to take action and be committed to their own healing. Please congratulate yourself in taking this first step and thank yourself for doing so. You see, this webinar is a culmination of 3+ years of a journey where I gained clarity into my own grieving process so that I can now share this with you. As well, I've combined my understanding with the new neuroscience data that is coming out now to back up some of my own conclusions or discoveries, the ones that I'll be sharing a bit later on with you. And then I do hope you will stay to the end, as I have a free template to give to you so that you can just see how the grief can affect so many different aspects of your life. And it's called the Grief Inventory. And I'll be giving you the link to this at the very end. So before jumping in, I'd like to explain how this webinar is going to work. So by the end of our time together, you will have a better understanding of how not to buy into these beliefs. You will discover why going it alone isn't such a great idea. The importance of putting on your own mask first, understanding your emotions are truly your friend. And then we'll be spending a little time together. I'd really like to share a bit about my journey. Hope that's okay with you. And then we'll talk about the next steps, which I'm actually excited to share. More about this, which are my 4 new webinars and what their benefits could be to you. So let's begin with my hero's journey. You may recall your Greek mythology, where the hero sets off on a journey, faces some type of challenge, is challenged in many ways, and then finds a way back home. Welcomed back by their community, who then throws a big party for them. This is how I came to see my own grief. It was indeed a journey. You see, this, I believe, is how you continue to learn and grow as humans. When your life is going smoothly, we just flow along. Why would you change it? Your life is good, but are you really learning anything? Well, contentment, perhaps. This exactly was where I was. My life was going well. I was happy at work. Life was good. And I didn't realize it at the time, but my challenge, my quest was about to begin. It was one particular morning, just like any other. I had gone to work and was getting myself organized to begin my day. The phone rang, and it was Mum letting me know my dad had been taken to hospital. This was one of the saddest days of my life because he would later die before I even got there. And all I kept thinking of afterwards was how I didn't get to say goodbye. This is where I fell into grief's abyss. This is about the ending of a series of many changes that continue thereafter. It was this one event that would turn my world upside down, and I would find out what it was like to feel grief's clutches. It would seem that my nurse training had taught me about death, but it had not equipped me with the tools on how to deal with personal loss. I went into shock, felt numb, and just floated my way through life for a while until this wore off, and then I began to feel the pain. Not only was I in pain, but I was totally overwhelmed with life, and my emotions were so intense and unruly that everything became a chore. You see, I had never experienced anything quite like this, so I had no point of reference. Life would continue on the outside. The sun still shone, but I would go into my own darkness. What I really needed was somebody to help me, to explain what the heck was happening and just what to expect in this grieving process. You see, I was totally clueless. I like to think of the forest, which we can all get lost in. And I'm sure you've experienced it, where everything just looks the same after a while. Well, this is how I likened my grief journey. It continued here for a while. I felt totally lost. Nothing in my life appeared to make sense. I would eventually take time off work, seek professional help, but that proved pointless, and certainly no one did give me the information on what to expect or the words of wisdom to guide me. It would be much later on, long before I realized my life was actually in transition. My old way of life had gone, and the new one had yet to even make an appearance. During this transition time, I sought the help of a coach, and it was she who supported, guided, and helped me to pick up the pieces. And she also helped me untangle my emotions and beliefs while helping me relate more to my values and my needs. And these, as I discovered, are all ways in helping you heal and connect with the self. It would probably take about another year before all the pieces would actually fall into place. By then, I had decided to retire. I am happy I did seek help, for I don't know how long I would actually have remained in the woods. You see, if I had some medical knowledge as a nurse hadn't helped me, how would others manage, I wondered. By now, I had successfully turned my grieving process time around so that my dad's death had personal meaning for me in a positive way, and I could easily talk about him without the floods of tears. It was about that time that instead of allowing myself to drown, I allowed myself to climb back and allow myself to be welcomed home by my community. Okay, that's the shortened version. It's time now to tell you about belief number 3, and that is the going alone syndrome. I like to think of it as a faulty belief system. How many of you question your beliefs or your thoughts? I'm sure many of your beliefs belong to your grandparents or your teachers or your family or friends. Have you ever taken time to question them? I'm sure you have heard that time heals all wounds. But yes, time does heal all wounds. But it's a little bit if you had broken your leg. Wouldn't you have a cast put on? You would rest, and you would not expect to walk very well on that leg after the cast had been removed. You would probably go to physio and do strengthening exercises, perhaps continue with crutches or a walking cane for support. So why wouldn't you expect to do the same for your broken heart? Perhaps you think, well, death or loss are normal, so why do you need help? Or perhaps that thought had not even crossed your mind. You see, if you believe time will heal, chances are you're going to sit around and wait and do nothing. Can you begin to see the disconnect? The problem with this belief is that you struggle to do everything on your own. And you don't seek any help. You may believe that death and loss are normal, so why would you? You need help, after all. Isn't your grief a normal response? Well, you may believe that in a few weeks or months' time, once you and your life are back to normal, everything will be okay. Your initial supports may have been your family and friends, but they've become tired of hearing about your loss, and you may be aware of how they're feeling, so you actually stop sharing. Or they may have been offering their support, but you may have been unable to accept their offer, feeling that they're intruding on your life. Or perhaps you're not allowing yourself to receive because you are more comfortable being the giver, and beside receiving help from others makes you feel uncomfortable. You could begin to isolate yourself as a way of dealing with your pain. So doing so can cause you to feel alone and that no one cares about you. You may believe you don't need anyone and that you can certainly do it on your own. However, this is an attitude that can cause you to put all your energy into overworking. You may even work long hours, over caring for someone else. You may even find yourself eating or drinking or smoking more, anything to numb your pain and stop yourself from thinking or feeling or even being alone. You may feel your life is spiraling and you're falling deeper into the hole. Now you're unable to sleep, you lie awake. Finally, exhaustion sets in, or even depression. Your life becomes one of mere existence. You can become like that wounded animal that lashes out if someone tries to help you. You become angry and frustrated. How many can relate or have experienced any of these scenarios? Yes, indeed. So what can you do? Well, understanding what you are doing and why is a great first step. So when you believe that there could be another way, you might like to look at what's available. You see, when I was researching for the book, I began to have a better appreciation of the Jewish faith. And when somebody that they love dies in their community, they all get together to help the family members who are grieving. They cook, they shop, and they care for them. That frees the family of the everyday distractions and allows them to go fully into their grief so that they can mourn their loss. Taking time to grieve in the early days is recommended as a way to help you heal. You may have found yourself shutting yourself off and isolating and not even wanting to get out of bed. This may be what you did initially, but you know it isn't that helpful. If this is you and you are having a hard time getting yourself moving, then begin by taking small action steps. Even the smallest ones can build so that you finally get into action. Doing something daily does help you focus on you see, and your needs so that you're not so much focused on your loss. Even your mind needs a break from your grief and to think about something else every now and again. Hopefully by now you are seeing why it's important that you allow yourself to be supported. If you don't have a good family friend or even a trusted family member who could be there for you, you may want to try and find a local support group. Being with others who have experienced a death can be healing in itself by allowing you to share your feelings, and knowing that they understand can be so helpful. When you connect to others with shared experiences, it is natural to bond and make friends. And this type of connection does wonders to how you feel. You see, we all want to be seen, heard, and acknowledged, and having someone supporting you allows for the release of dopamine and serotonin. Now, these are the bonding, good feeling hormones, and these can be very hard to access when you're grieving. Once you have your supports in place, time to look at adding some pleasurable activities into your life. Why not make a list of activities you like to do, or pick up hobbies you did before your loss? This is also a good time to go to your library or your local bookstore and check out what books they perhaps have on grief. Reading and learning more about what grieving is about and how others have coped and healed can certainly give you hope and encouragement for the future. Why not make yourself feel better by watching a funny movie or tune into the comedy channel? Anything to get yourself laughing. You see, grief is such a heavy, low emotion that can certainly be made lighter by laughter. And your laughter can certainly raise those feel-good hormones. So you're beginning to see the importance of laughter. Perhaps you could even journal. These can certainly help you clarify your thoughts, which can at times appear to be dreadfully jumbled up. And I find by writing things down, it gets you out of your head and links your head and your heart together. And this is a big hint. We need our heads and hearts to work together. Our heads so often want to plan and go into action long before our hearts are ready to do so. So whenever you have something, a thought, run it by your heart and see how that feels before bustling off into busy action. You see, often when you write your thoughts and feelings down, you can also have many aha moments. And these insights can actually help you lift your mood. Grieving doesn't have to be an alone solution. And I urge you to seek out some supports. Now, I'd like you to take a few moments, and if you brought along a journal, perhaps you could take time now to jot down something that you thought about that perhaps I didn't mention that you would find helpful. You may also like to jot down what steps you might be planning to take now that you have this newfound awareness into this belief. You could even take time to share your aha moments with a family member. Putting on your own mask, belief number 2. I'm sure if you have flown in an airplane, you know they always stress the importance as they go through the emergency drill, that in the event of emergency, how essential it is to put your own mask on before helping anyone else. Taking care of yourself first applies to many of life's stresses, especially grief. How can you help anyone else if you are running on adrenaline alone? Or even worse, running on empty. Adrenaline is released by the body, you see, when it is preparing to fight or flee from a known enemy. You might well ask why this is important. I'm sorry if there's any men on the call tonight. I address mainly women because this activity is something that comes very natural to women. And it's why you need to question this very belief. It is important to understand your motivation for why you need to take care of others in the first place. It can give you a sense of control when nothing in your life appears controllable anymore. It can give you something else to focus on. Perhaps you may care for others because it gives you a sense of yourself. It may even give your life meaning as you feel needed. It can give you purpose. It can also become a form of escapism because you aren't focused on your own pain. There is a difference from wearing yourself out, believing you are helping others. It can also be seen as a form of denial. You keep yourself so busy just so as not to deal with your own emotions and feelings. In your early grief, it is something to become aware of. Taking care of others can be a good thing, but only when you have been taken care of yourself. I'm sure many of you have heard of this famous author, Byron Katie, and she has stated many times that there's three kinds of business: your business, God's business, and other people's business. So you see, when you're taking care of others, you are in their business. When you're anxious and unable to do anything to help, such as these floods or shootings, and you're unable to do much about that situation, then you are in God's business. Who then is taking care of yours? Just imagine your body roaming around, wandering around aimlessly. No one is in the controls because you are missing and not present to you. Time to step back and make sure you are taken care of. This is self-love, and we all need to love ourselves more. It is hard because we have become conditioned and taught to always think of others and believe it is selfish to think only of ourselves. In this case, it isn't selfish, it just makes good sense. If you are continually running on empty, how can you take care of anything or someone else? It's only delaying your pain, if not dealt with now, and depleting your energy further. So taking care of yourself is the first steps in learning to love yourself. Taking time for you is so important, especially in the first few weeks when your stress levels are really high with dealing with the death, perhaps the funeral, and settling the person's estates if you are the executor. That alone is enough to make you want to remain under the covers. Taking daily action steps to get you going is so essential, as it's important to move the stress and emotions out of your body. And just by walking, especially in nature, this can be very healing and soothing. You may like to take a yoga class or go back to the gym if that's something you enjoyed, or even relax in a bath and go to bed when you feel tired. Yes, even taking naps instead of doing an extra load of laundry. Allow yourself to even ask for help when you need it. Your needs are important, and it's okay to ask them to be filled or take steps to do so yourself. Find a good friend who is willing to listen to you. This can help you sort your feelings out. Going for a massage is an excellent way to have someone else touch your body. You see, we humans, we need hugs and touch, and it's especially important when someone has died. It can be their hugs and the close contact that you miss without even realizing it. Massage therapists know that when someone is grieving, they can begin to cry once they are on the table. It seems that we store a lot of emotions in our muscles. This is fine with them, and I just mention it so you won't be alarmed. You are doing the right thing. You can go back to caring for others once your tanks have been filled back up again and your energy has returned. If you work outside the home, it is even more essential you take care of yourself. The demands of a job can be especially taxing on your limited energy reserves. You may want to look into using some holiday time or even sick leave if you're not functioning well at work. Do speak to your boss or manager and let them know what is going on. You don't need to tell them everything, just alert them to the fact that you may be off your game for a little while and not so productive for a while. They may be very supportive and allow you to work flex hours, or even have someone team up with you to help with a specific project. It isn't realistic to expect you to cope alone, especially at work in those early days. And it may be an idea to let go of the need to have your house perfectly clean. Relax your standards just for now. There are just a few reasons why women get emotionally drained and then sick when they don't recognize the stresses that this can have on their bodies. And it can result in them getting stuck in the cycle of grief that they don't have the energy reserves to even process. What are you going to do to take care of yourself? What steps are you planning to take now that you have your awareness? This is a moment for you to pull out your journal and jot down anything that you would like to write. Perhaps you can include your aha moments. Here we are at belief number 1. What is it? Well, before I go into it, I feel we need a drum roll. We have reached belief number 1, the most important one. If you were only taught about your emotions at a very early age, you wouldn't find yourself in the other 2 beliefs. They are distractions for what you really need to do, and that is to grieve. We have become so afraid of our so-called negative emotions only because no one has taught us. Our parents or their parents, especially, of their importance. We have all forgotten their true reasons, and we continue to push them away so as not to deal with them. Emotions, both positive and negative, as we like to label them, are our friends and are necessary for our survival and well-beings. So which ones is emotions your friend or foe? And this is what can happen when you don't question them or take care of them. You see, for most of us, we prefer to push them away and stuff down any negative emotions, preferring to go off in search of the positive ones. Just look at the industry that has built up on finding all the happy emotions. But unless we take care of the negative ones, it's hard to build happy on top of the negative. We're also made to feel bad or that something's wrong with us if we aren't happy all the time. Also, you have learned from an early age that your so-called negative emotions were not welcomed, while exhibiting positive ones were always rewarded. How many of you recall growing up being told not to cry, or stop, I'll give you something to cry about? It's almost as if you need permission to now allow them to flow naturally after being suppressed for so very long. It is interesting that most of us will do anything to avoid our feelings, especially the negative ones. Why? Because they're so overpowering, and we're uncertain as to how to handle them or know what to do when they even arise. To avoid feeling them, we have learned all kinds of adaptive behaviors, such as overworking, drinking, smoking more, overeating, perhaps even spending more, even spending long hours at the gym. Anything we look upon this as a mechanism that's going to save us from feeling these emotions. Why do we prefer to do this? Well, because they make us feel better temporarily. However, when you deny your emotions, especially the heavy ones like grief, it can lead to depression. When you deny your emotions, especially those heavy ones, it can also present as physical symptoms in your body as a result. Women and men can even experience an illness after their partner's death. And many years ago, Time magazine ran an article reporting that women can become stuck in their grief for as long as 5 to 8 years after their spouse's death. I'm sure many of you will have seen the stories of Queen Victoria. Apparently, she wore her mourning outfit for 40 years after her husband, Prince Albert's death. Are you beginning to understand the importance of tending to your emotions? It can be guilt or fear stopping you from giving your emotions free rein because you fear that they'll be so overwhelming. And if you did allow yourself to feel them, you may even fail to stop. Guilt is another reason you may be reluctant to fully grieve and be happy, believing that if you did, it may show that you didn't love the person enough. This is natural, but it's also essential that you allow yourself to cry, to grieve, to shout, even to howl. In the West, we have become so out of touch with our emotions. There are many cultures in the world who see no shame expressing them and will do so readily. You may have seen some women or men on TV dropping down and pulling at their hair or beating their chests and weeping inconsolably. Your grief emotions can remain, especially if you replay the same scenario over and over again. Why? Because it causes your emotions to become triggered. The benefits of emotional understanding are really quite vast. You see, your grief comes forward naturally when something out of your control has been lost, such as a death. Grieving also occurs when you have lost someone or something of importance. Grieving is the internal feeling of turmoil as all your emotions want to come forward, but they do so and are all tangled up, so that it's often very difficult to recognize what it is you are truly feeling. Only because most of us are not familiar with what each separate emotion feels like. Yes, fear, sadness, anger, or depression are the common ones, but there are also many others, lesser, softer ones that are available to us as well. If asked, how are you, or what are you feeling? How many of you will respond to, oh, I'm okay, I'm fine? Yes, this is our social protocol at work, but often we don't know what we're truly feeling. You may reach for food because without questioning why, instead of asking yourself what it is you are feeling, it could be you are hungry, but often the reasons are unconscious, and it could be you're feeling sad or lonely or even upset. We reach for these pleasurable things such as food or drink or any of the other addicted substances because it's pleasurable and we need something to fill that large hole that we so often feel. So when you're in the throes of grieving, which is a heavy emotion, just know its job is to get you to stop what it is you're doing, drop to your knees, and allow yourself to mourn and be inconsolable. This is the best way to help with your healing. You have experienced a loss, and this is so natural that you do all this, except, of course, in our Western culture, which can be so death averse, and emotions are embarrassing to witness. Once you begin to allow yourself to go into your mourning, which is your outer expression of grief, your emotions will begin to flow naturally, and if you allow them, they will come and go really quite quickly. Sadness is all too common. You can feel sad because you will never see or be with the person again. Sadness has another purpose. One of its functions is certainly to slow you down so that you can process what it is you're sad about and ask yourself, what perhaps could I let go of? Fear arises when your senses have picked up some threat to let you know that you're in danger. But fear also causes you to be alert. It prepares the body to flee. So finding or feeling fear can also be a way of gaining control when you feel that you don't have any. You may feel fear that you have a heart attack or some fatal illness and do everything in your control to ward off those possibilities. You may fear you will not be able to manage alone because the person did so many of the things, including being responsible for your happiness. Perhaps begin to journal about your fear and see if you can determine what it is telling you. Anger is another normal feeling to what has occurred. You can throw your anger at everyone and all, including yourself, in blame. Even your God can become a target of your anger. Again, journaling about what you're so angry about can be helpful. Hitting your pillows with your fists is also a good way. Anything to release the pent-up anger. It's an emotion. It needs to be released. You will often see men releasing theirs at the gym with a punch bag or heavy weights. It's good to let that anger out. Anger is such a good emotion because it can actually motivate you and move you further along. Jealousy can also appear when you see others who have what you yourself do not. It could perhaps be noticing a couple or others who are enjoying their parents. Jealousy, the green-eyed monster, can be a good thing if you pay attention to it because it is showing you what you feel you are lacking for that something in your life. Could be you're feeling guilty, but guilty is really a feeling of shame for something we didn't do. We tend to confuse guilt, which really is a legal term. You're either guilty or not of committing a crime. The true feeling is actually shame. You have broken your own code over something you feel it's important and you didn't do. Without feeling shameful, you won't be able to adjust your moral compass. I hope all this has helped you be less afraid of your emotions and more willing to embrace them. Of course, if you have the opposite and cannot stop crying, and this has been going on for many months or even a few years, perhaps it's time then that you seek a medical profession for the advice. It could be so helpful because there could be so much more going on for you, a lot more than what is termed normal grief. You see, there is such a thing as complicated grief. However, I won't get into that just here. You know this could happen if you don't care for yourself and your grief. Now, take out your journals and see if you have any questions that you could write. One big one, close your eyes, sense into your body and see if you can feel an emotion rising. Can you name it? Can you even detect it in your body? Have you taken time out to accept where you're at, or are you denying, avoiding, or have you emotionally eaten or emotionally drank alcohol or smoked more? If you've answered yes to any of these, think about what some of the things, the steps that you could take and what you might be committed to doing differently now. That was a lot of information. So let's go over some of the key points. So you now have the understanding and the information on why it's important to not go alone and why you need to be supported on your journey. It is good that you also have the tools and information so that you can happily put on your own mask before setting out to help others yourself. Lastly, I spoke a lot of how emotions are all needed, and the ones we have known as negative, as you can see, are every bit as important as the positive ones. I hope that this will bring more awareness of your situation and how you can begin to heal yourself. First, with supports, taking time to include much needed self-care into your routine and demystifying your emotions. I hope I've been able to do that a little for you this evening. You can allow them to come and go freely and be welcome visitors in your life. Right now, before we go into the next bit, because we've been sitting for so long, I'd like you all to get up, stretch, perhaps move around, have a drink, and come back again. You might even like to just shake. This is very good for allowing your emotions to move around and not get stuck in your body. Shaking is very, very helpful. Okay, sure, moving around helped. So what are your next steps? Well, as promised, I'm going to unveil for you my new webinar series, which is a set of 4 webinars called Transition and Transformation. And this is where your journey will continue so that you can get out of any victim stages that you may be feeling yourself in, so that you too can become a hero on your journey, just as I did. You saw that at the beginning. And these 4 webinars are called Thriving in the Midst of Change, Reclaiming Your Time, Beating Self-Sabotage, and Charting a Course for New Adventures. Now, these is a series of training webinars with exercises and handouts, and yes, even homework. And as I mentioned, you get to continue on with your grieving journey, where you will discover that there are many other ways that can keep you from healing if you're not aware of them. You may be discovering there's a lot more to grieving than just pain and sadness. To really be able to heal your grief, there is work to be done. That's why you hear people saying grief work is hard work. It isn't really when you change your perspective and see it more as an exploration. You may be realizing that yes, you are grieving the loss of a loved one, but you are also discovering more about you in the process. This is the magic, the alchemy of doing deep grief work, and you get the benefits. You will always have the memories of your loved one, but you will learn how to transform your pain. And who knows, perhaps you too will create a legacy as I did. A death or major loss can shatter you, can shatter your belief in life and even yourself. And it's as if your very foundation has been torn up and has to be rebuilt. Yes, you are rebuilding your life, and this is part of your journey. Like our hero, you are setting out on this journey to reclaim and reconnect to you again. As with any journey, you need a map and a plan, and that is just what you will get from your time spent with the Transition and Transformation series. Some of the benefits of having gone through this training are you'll learn to overcome resistance, self-sabotage, unbalance, and making perhaps bad decisions. You'll also discover how you can be comfortable with change to overcome that resistance. The importance of having fun once you can get your life more into balance, and how to handle the negative voices in your head so that you can get out of the self-sabotaging habits. And finally, you actually go through an A to Z journey so that you can create and plan your new future. I will give you the link so that you can get more information on each one of them on my website. And there's a full list of all the benefits that you can gain from each one. So in this transition and transformation, as I mentioned, it's a 4-part training, and it normally, or the investment is normally $197. But for being on this webinar this evening, we're giving a special price of $97. And this is the link that you can go to be able to claim this at this price of $97 instead of the $197. This is my way of thanking you for taking time out and getting into your healing journey. I will be creating a Facebook page, so I have your contact information if you signed up for this webinar, and I can let you know when the Facebook page is up and running. And my plan is for you to meet other participants so that you can share your journey as you go through each of these webinars. And yes, I'll be popping in from time to time. If you have any questions, I can't guarantee it'll be every day, but I will be popping in. And if somebody on the site can't help you, then hopefully I'll be able to. I find that when you're with like-minded people, it's much easier for you to learn a new skill. And if taking courses or webinars aren't your thing right now, I do offer one-on-one coaching. And for anybody on the training tonight, I'm going to give you a link to my agenda, because you can have a free discovery session with me in the upcoming days and weeks if you get in and book yours. So it's for an hour. We do it over the phone or Skype, and I will give you the link as well at the end. So we've come to the end, and I would like to thank you for spending time with me. It truly is a heartfelt thanks. And I hope to hear and see from you soon. There is the link. And just to let you know, my happiest moments are when my clients are no longer my clients. Thank you all. Wishing you well on your journey. And as promised, here's the link to the courses, the free destination discovery session, and as I mentioned, your free inventory guide that's available for you for attendance. I think you'll find it helpful, as it shows you many of the areas that grief can actually seep into if you're not aware. Thank you. Many blessings. Bye-bye for now.